them as new things? I would say no. Because I think of examples where that doesn't work.
Oh, please.
Yeah, so for example...
To be clear,
yeah.
So you're going to give an example of a situation where two things where you would say this equals that, but they don't all share identical properties.
Yeah.
Okay, please.
Okay, so if I have a glass of water, the water inside, if I zoom in on one part of it, is that water? It is, right?
Yeah, so
if I zoom out and go to another part that has the same intrinsic properties, is that also the same water?
No, it's water. It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not that.
Okay.
It's not the same water. The first water you aimed at.
So they're separate waters.
They are both made of.
Are they separate?
Yeah, they're separate.
They're separate. So if I have a glass of water, I have to say I have a glass of waters.
Sure. They're separate because you set up the experiment. You said, if I look at one bit, so you chose to identify one location in space-time where there was H2O, and you made the correct statement. Here there is water. Then you identified a different location in space
within the same body of water.
So it's true to say that in both locations you found H2O.
So are the two waters?
There are two different locations.
Are there two waters?
There's one water in two locations.
Thank you, thank you. You just demonstrated to me that it's improper to count them separately as two waters.
If the question
you're still referring to it as one water, right?
The question is, are they the same? Are they made of the same elements?
Right.
The answer is yes. If the question is, are the specific ones I'm pointing at the same? The answer is no.
Right.
In order in logic for A to equal B, it would have to tick both boxes. It would have to be made of the same thing and be in the same location in space-time.
Well, I actually agree with that. But would you say though that you, in your language, you would refer to it as a singular water? Body of water.
I'm happy to see water as having specific and unique properties, and they're ubiquitous.
So this is kind of what I'm getting at. There are ways in which there are things that we don't count as new things, even though you can actually argue, look, they are, what's the word? They are distinct.
Yeah.
So if you held to a counting by identity alone, you have to say there's multiple waters, because they all individually, the very particle level, they all meet the requirement for being water. So there are multiple waters there.
I think what you're...
But I would never say, can you give me a glass of waters? Because you're looking at me funny. You say it's all the same water.
No, when you say give me a glass, you're saying I have a space prepared for you to give me a specific glass. That's what you mean by A. If you say give me that one, then you've identified which space it is. If you say A, you're going, I want this space filled. Give me something that fulfills being water. It doesn't mean all glasses of water are the same glass, because they're not.
Well, all glasses of water are not the same glass, right? But in that one glass of water...
Jesus.
Wait.
Sorry, the Father and the Son, although they may be both made of water, they're made of water in different locations.
Wait. Well, actually, let me bring that back in, because the reason why I think this applies even more to the Trinity is because in our perspective, the way that we understand God and the Triune God is that Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are not physically located. So in other words, you can't even make a distinction based on location.
So is the Son, I think as a layman, I think for a lot of people colloquially, we assume the Son refers to the man Jesus to some extent.
In a temporal point,
and the man Jesus had certain properties, one of which was flesh. Okay, so when physical properties
for 33 years.
For 33 years. So the way we would say,
but that's not where he's located, right?
So just to
sorry, go on.
So just to say, what we would do is we would say that we would say the divine essence. So we would say the divine essence that is God, that has always existed, consists of the three hypostases, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So that divine essence has no physical location, and that holds true as well with Jesus, because otherwise we'd have to say that literally the divine essence now has a GPS position, and we wouldn't say that because we'd be attributing physicality to the immaterial God, and we couldn't do that. What we say instead is that there's a meaningful way through the incarnation that divine essence enjoined to itself flesh, but not in a literal physical presence. It's not as if the divine essence all of a sudden entered into the world physically and became somehow limited in a body. We say that there's a meaningful way that the divine essence is enjoined onto the full humanity of Christ through the incarnation. It's important to understand that, because otherwise you'd be right. Otherwise it would literally be that the divine essence then just suddenly becomes limited by physical space, and we wouldn't say that.
I know.
I understand this is like very like.
My suspicion with this is going to be that it's trying to back engineer to a position.
It's not back engineer, but you could go to early church fathers and they say the same thing. You cannot say.
I don't hold them in nearly the same regard.
Well, you're right, but they're intelligent people who are writing about it. They believe it.
But look at the idea in itself as it's presented. Yeah.
Right.
I don't feel hugely beholden to people over 1,000 years ago who sat around and had a political meeting about how to interpret something, because
it's philosophy.
interacted in good faith.
It's philosophy in accordance with the scripture.
No, we also are using philosophy. We're also using it with the benefit of knowing far more about physics and science now. I think we're in a position to draw our own conclusions to some extent.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm doing that. Also,
Same.
can I, whatever the answer to the Trinity is,
It gets more deeper than this, by the way.
will it change
really
the
like
fact that if there's a baby drowning, I should save it from drowning?
It doesn't change any of that. No. The ontology of morality is the same regardless.
So I kind of put it to you then, the hierarchy of things that I think God seems to want to communicate to people in the world's religion.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to pick facts or science or philosophy.
Truth. He picks truth, right?
He picks truth.
He picks truth.
He picks truth.
Truth.
But he doesn't go, hey, here's the periodic table.
No, but he picks truth.
He picks truth, but he picks truth, and he seems to particularly pertain it to the world of ethics and how you live and the choices.
Well, and
make.
relationship.
Yeah, fine, relationship.
Yeah, so like truth and relationship and who he is.
Okay, not
That
be
seems to
really
be
good at
Trinitarian.
maths, but primarily the rules given are about how you personally should live. The rules of ethics and teleology.
Well,
if the rules of ethics and teleology,
I would expand that to include other things ultimately, because.
okay, it may do, but part of it, if you look at most of the prescriptions, like the Ten Commandments, they're ethical prescriptions. Sermon on the Mount, Golden Mean, ethical.
Right, but even there, that's within a context.
Yeah.
Like, for example, well, that's literally the covenant God has with people. Like what you said, relational.
It's the most important bit.
Yeah, it's the God enters into creation and he says, hey, I want to have a relationship with you. I genuinely, yeah.
So you're interpreting it that I have to believe God entered into creation. I'm primarily.
Well, you talked about the Ten Commandments. I'm saying the context of that.
Whether God entered into it or not, and he may have done. I'm not discounting that. Inevitably, we are faced with choices every day, moral choices. Yeah. It seems that religion, the world's religion, Christianity is very good at it, addresses how we should mediate those choices. I will perpetually be faced with the choices. Should I say that I'm a baby? Should I do this? Should I do that? These are the pivotal and essential elements of religion. I think as long as I get those choices
I think that's a very Christian understanding of the pivotal things of religion, right?
I don't think God's going to particularly care if I got the intellectual small print wrong.
Right.
As long as I get the ethical decisions.
No, I don't think that any other religion.
You think it's more like a pub quiz, and if you get it right, God likes you.
I don't think you should put words in my mouth.
Fair enough.
I think that every other religion that I have come across and understood would not claim that the predominant thing God does with his people is give them ethical rules. Well, in fact, I would say, like, the predominant thing that God does in Christianity is say, I desire your love, and this is how you should live in order better to love me. And that corresponds with a set of ethical principles and a way of living that involves the human imago Dei, like in order to best love God, we love man, and all those things. Yes, for sure. But I think that the claim, religions seem to be bothered about the way that we interact with each other, the way we live. I think it's a deeply Christian way of perceiving religion.
Maybe, but is it accurate?
Well, Tony sounds to me like a Christian. He's a Christian that's gone and done his own. Like, you've gone and you've explored the world and you've thought. I'm not trying to insult you.
He's become his own pope.
Well, not quite, but
the tradition of Christianity I was brought up with. I know I'm doing a lot of thinking for myself.
Yeah,
I probably should. I am clearly, but I think we should. But the tradition I was brought up in.
Did you guys know each other, by the way?
Yeah, we talk to each other quite close.
I'm capable of conducting more than civil conversations, and I think Chris is a good guy.
I think Tony's a good guy.
I think anybody who is genuinely hunting for the truth and treats other people with respect and so on, I'm up for it. I don't care what conclusions you're drawing. I care.
Hello there, good to see you, man.
Pursuing them.
You look a little bit like Wolverine.
Thank you. weird, I think. I don't know.
Sorry, what did you
It looks
say?
a bit like Hugh Jackman, don't you think? Do you see it?
I
Just
mean,
me? All right, fine.
It's probably just the best. Okay, look, so let me move then to the Judaism. I put it to you, the Ten Commandments are ethical directives. That's the big moment in the Old Testament. The big moments in the Old Testament to me are Genesis and the Ten Commandments. If I was going to go, what are the two singularly most important moments? I think it's those. And the Ten Commandments, I'm just being as honest as I can, seem to be ethical prescriptions. It's not going
Of how we interact with God and how we interact with man, right?
Yeah, the rules. Here's the rules.
it's also important, just to add here, in the Torah we see clear descriptions of a messianic figure to come. And the messianic figure is given immense weight as being a very important figure in the grand scheme of the whole world, not just to the Jews but also to the Gentiles. So I would, as a Christian, I would say that one of the big purposes of the Torah is to point to who that person is.
And the theophanies likewise, right?
Well, the theophanies as well.
Does that in any way, you may well be right, does that in any way contradict my assertion?
No. Well,
ethical?
I'm adding to what you're saying. I'm adding to what you're saying.
Whether or not, so you would say that resting on the Sabbath day is an ethical issue?
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm very clear. I think all choices we make in life, every choice is ethical. Okay, I think ethics is that foundation. It's not like you live your life and then there's ethics. The act of choosing is always ethical.
Us resting because God rested is an ethical thing.
Yeah,
it's not a desire for God to give us a way of living that we know Him better. It's an ethical issue.
I think.
Or are you saying there's both? Okay.
Let's take fasting, for example, yeah? The act of fasting seems to be common to a lot of religions. Yeah?
I think it's common to almost all of them.
Right, there you go.
Fasting.
So to me as a universalist, that's good news. So I'm going to
Tony,
win here.
one, take off the cloak of universalism and you'll become an amazing Christian. One day, I know, you already you know.
But I'm saying, if we inspect the virtue of fasting, I think we can see, well, it seems to instill in people a certain discipline, number one, inevitably, yeah. It seems to instill in people an appreciation for the things they would take for granted, which pans out into a wider appreciation in life. What else do I take for granted? It also seems to instill in people a sense of, God, it must be horrible to be starving in the third world, and expanded empathy. So I will conclude that whoever came up with the idea of fasting was one bright, ethical son of a bitch. Okay?
You wouldn't
So would I, apart from the last
So
one.
I'm going to
well, I would say,
religions to come
I would say ultimately it comes from God. I would say the scriptures are divinely inspired.
Son.
Huh? Okay.
Sorry for swearing.
Oh no! I'm just.
Right. So I'm applauding God. I'm just hoping you can agree.
Yeah.
Ethical directive. How it has.
Can I ask you something that really interests me? That yardstick, that measuring stick of ethics and morality. So for example, if you say you're a universalist and you say that there is such a thing as morality, and it is very important, and ethical decisions are ultimately all decisions, and so they're important, right? And there's a right choice. Some right choices and some wrong choices.
I think it's a mistake to think in terms of right or wrong. There are better and worse.
Is it right? So it's wrong to think that there are right or wrong choices?
I'll give you a binary. I think when you make choices,
I'm having a chat with them.
That's so many microphones, buddy.
I don't be super rude. What?
I think you look great.
Yeah, loads.
It suits you. It's symmetrical.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
very nice.
Now you've said it's symmetric.
Yeah.
It's now getting annoying me. Can we move on across the other side?
No.
I think nearly every choice you face, if you inspect it, you'll discover it offers you more than two options.
Yeah.
Okay? So normally what you're facing is a hierarchy of possibilities.
Yeah.
I think in that hierarchy, inevitably, there will always be some choices which are nearer the top of the hierarchy than the other.
I can agree with that.
So
Yeah.
if you want the traditional binary of good and bad,
No, that doesn't touch on the binary of good and bad. All it means is that there are worse bad things and better good things, right?
Yeah. Integrate your vocabulary into my vocabulary, and then we'll have a synthesis again. Because I don't like binaries, but I can integrate it. So
I don't like binaries. I love binaries.
It's also a great claim.
I did like binaries till I was any problems.
No binaries.
Let me finish.
No
Let me
binaries.
finish. So, if we agree that your choices are ethical inherently, if we agree they're happening in a spectrum, then if you want to use the word good and bad, I'll say good is whatever is encouraging you towards the best choice, and bad is whatever is encouraging you towards the worst.
Yeah, but that's wait. You've just.
I've got good and bad and a spectrum of choice all integrated.
So you do believe in good and bad?
In that sense, but that means no individual. Like we agreed, it's not wrong to steal. It depends on the choices you're facing at the time. Good will be whatever draws you towards the best choice. Yeah. Usually, I shouldn't steal.
No, it's not so bad. Oh, okay.
Usually, I shouldn't steal. We can agree. But sometimes I think possibly I should. So I'm always making a choice, and good is whatever draws me towards my best choice, and bad is whatever draws.
Well, actually, I would actually use your own framework, and I would just say stealing is always bad, but the variance of it can depend on the circumstance. So likewise, it will be bad if I shot this gentleman here. But if I shot this gentleman here and then shot the cameraman, that's even on a more worse level. Yeah, well, my point is, stealing, murder, all bad things, can all have variances.
Okay, can we do theft?
Alright, if I stole from my friend here, then I stole from the cameraman, that's more stealing.
That wouldn't be as bad as stealing his camera. They're bad.
Yeah, I think so.
But they're both bad.
You think it's always wrong to steal?
Yeah.
Yes, stealing is always wrong. And some stealing is
honestly reflect on an example. If you brainstorm, like a thought experiment, for any example where maybe stealing wouldn't be bad, then you realise that it's not always bad, it's just usually bad.
No.
Can you not think of any example?
We have. I want to just get to where I'm thinking. It's not to say that we.
No, I really like your input, please.
It's not to say that, for example, I wouldn't steal. I would if I had to in certain circumstances.
Right.
But the issue is just because I would do so does not make it like good, but rather it just means that it's less worse.
Okay, the example I used with the Muslim guy debating last week was very good. If you've got a rich man, just brainstorm for counter-examples to what you believe. Yeah? It's easy to look for examples which confirm what you believe, but the real work is look for counter-examples. So you've got a very rich man, and he's got rich by being a bit of a gangster.
Yeah.
He's sitting home in his garden.
Yeah.
It's his garden. He's eating his chicken.
Yeah.
And he throws his chicken, half a chicken leg, to his bin.
Yeah.
Right? And a poor man whose family are dying of starvation walks by, sees it flying towards the bin, and reaches out to catch it.
Yeah.
And at that point, the rich man goes, no. Let it drop. It's my chicken, my bin. Technically, he's correct, but I think ethically, in other words, in the eyes of God, God's on side with the guy who is catching it. So legally, he's stealing, true, but ethically, in the eyes of God, God is on the side of that person. Therefore, you cannot make the deal to
What do you mean God is on their side? What do you mean by that?
I believe that because he's a God of empathy and treating other people, the golden mean, the way you would want to be treated, God would want the rich person to have compassion for.
Oh, I agree with that.
Okay, but so when God looks at that, I think he's more on side with the poor guy, and he's looking at the bad guy going, you could do much better, mate, the rich guy. So ethically, it favours the thief, whereas deontologically, the Ten Commandments statement, thou shalt not steal, favours the other guy. And I'm just being aware of that dichotomy. I don't want to...
I see, the thing is, I kind of agree with you, but I would just say that actually the stealing is still bad, even if...
So he shouldn't steal.
No, there's a difference there. You see, you're saying... Otherwise you die.
But so by what? Then why is making statements like stealing is bad? Why is that a substantive or meaningful resonance?
Because it reminds you that there are things... Okay, so for example, if I was that person and I was starving and I chose to steal, I would ask for forgiveness for God for doing it, but I would hope that he's a God of mercy and understands why I did it.
Okay, you want to work in that frame?
That would be how I was... So... it's still...
Do you think the culture should judge the poor man in court just as badly for doing that as if the poor man had stolen?
No.
Right.
No. So again, you're confusing two things. I'm just talking about the ontology of it.
Yeah.
It's still bad. But in terms of what we ought to do about it, that's very different. And I probably agree with you exactly on that aspect.
Okay.
I'm just saying, though, the value is still bad. Because the moment you say, well, actually, stealing is contextual, then I feel like you have taken a big step towards a subjective form of morality. That worries me, bro.
It should. It should. You're correct to do that, but I think this is this is the mountain, this is the slippery slope. It's I think you're standing at the bottom of that mountain and going, if we start talking like that, we could end up on a slippery slope, and you're right, we will. But I honestly believe that journey is worth it, because not all slippery slopes should be avoided. When you see a slippery slope, what you should do is go, guys, slippery slope ahead, be careful. But if sometimes the mountain is worth climbing. So now, let's be aware that we might just slide into some silly postmodern relativism, which is not where I want to end up. But I do believe having inspected.
We kind of touched on this a little bit before, but I actually, looking at the world around me, don't believe that actually happens. I trust me, I used to believe that. I used to believe that actually it's just up to the individuals to come together and to assert these values and to reject like the postmodernism, the relativism, the slippery slope. And as long as you're strong in doing so, that is in a way a virtue. But I don't believe that anymore, because I actually don't think that we're capable of that. And I think that it's a way of justifying non-action.
It can be. I'm sure you will find me individuals who tick that box.
The issue is
a lot of them, and it might even be an infestation of them. But it doesn't mean that they embody that potential.
But I'm looking at culture around me. I'm looking at the Western world. I'm looking at what we've decided as cultures across the world to do. Yeah. And it's always in a way that I don't think is good. I think it's like the worst of the worst of these ideas rather than the best of the ideas.
I think we agree. I think we're in a postmodern malaise.
Yeah.
A loss of value, a loss of meaning, a loss of structure.
Yeah.
I see traditional religion as an antidote to that.
I agree, I do as well.
However,
I mean, obviously I have a particular thing I would assert.
Own problems, which you then have
well, everything has problems. Like, in Christendom, we have problems, we have issues, right? Because everyone does, including Universalists, including, I would argue your problems are bigger than mine, but you understand my point. We all have problems. So I agree, it's just about coming close to the truth as possible and being assertive enough to actually defend it and do the work.
Right.
Because if you're not assertive of it, in other words, what I mean is, and this is the problem I would have with universalism and things like this, ultimately it boils down to, I'm not going to assert my values.
No.
And I have a problem with that.
No, I think you should.
You should assert your values.
Universalist, I start with the assumption all choices are ethical.
Right.
You are born with an ethical nature, which is pointed towards God.
Right.
Every choice you make can pretty much be measured in terms of how accurately did you align with your potential to go with God. So I'm in an objectively framed ontological framework, which is absolutely ethical, but it's not beholden to people pub quizzing to pick a particular intellectual interpretation of the Trinity or Hinduism or whatever. It's so tested in the choices that you make.
You do equate that with religion. If you left that at like, well, people may not necessarily understand intellectually the Trinity, and maybe that's not the most important thing. I can somewhat understand that, because like we've said before, a 90-year-old lady might not understand the Trinity, but she's been a churchgoer her whole life, and so I still think she's saved because she just doesn't have the capacity to properly understand the doctrine. But she's not intentionally going against it or whatnot.
I think anyone who intellectually is capable of getting that doctrine, if they are offered it, they're capable of assimilating it, and they reject it. You think from God's point of view, they just did something significant. Whereas I think as long as they're still saving the drowning baby, from God's point of view, they're basically okay.
The problem with drowning baby, like anyone can save a drowning baby. That's a very weird thing for me to say, but my point is that even bad people or people who act badly have done good things.
I'm judging the individual choice. I'm just saying that choice specifically will be one God would applaud, irrespective of the intellectual framework surrounding it. Yes?
Yeah, if isolated,
Right. So if I'm going to go, my life is basically a series of choices, which God will be judging, essentially based on his ethical output relative to my potential. Then the intellectual baggage I bring to it is secondary. I'm not saying the intellectual baggage has no relevance, because I think the intellectual baggage informs the veracity of that proposition. If you look at it from a particular angle, it's actually confirming. It's look first to the mote in your own eye. It's going, stop telling me the facts as to why this person's bad, because what's primary is how you personally behave. It's profoundly Christian.
Yes, but I would also say that ultimately, see, this goes back to what I asked you before. ethically speaking, from a Christian perspective, I would argue that when we try and do good, compared to a holy and righteous God, what we do is immensely limited. And the typical way that we say this, because it comes from the Bible, is we say our works are like dirty rags to God. What we try to do that's good, comparatively, is actually basically nothing.
It's not
that's not to say. Sure.
It's hugely contaminated.
Right, but that's not to say that we ought not to do good things. Right, absolutely not. And no Christian will tell you, well, who cares then? Do what you want to do because your good works are guilty rags. But rather, what we would say is, our ethical decisions are not enough on their own to warrant the goodness and the relationship we have with God.
I find that profoundly strange. I find if your proposition is that if the proposition, which is the way I was brought up, doesn't mean it's right, but also the proposition I see reflected in most of the films about the life of Christ, the ones which directed the substance of God. If I want to communicate the story, he's the essence. It is very much that he's a loving God.
Of course, we have to know what that means. What does it mean to love? No, because there are people with different things.
Embodies the spirit of love.
Well, yes, but that's tautology. We need to know what love is.
Intellectually, do I? I mean, okay, I do.
Well, yes, in a way.
What do you mean by love when you say?
So, for example, if you didn't want God, what would a loving God do?
They'd love me anyway.
Right, but would he force you to be with him? No, he wouldn't, would he?
No, he wouldn't, but he would love me anyway.
But there's a multitude of different opinions about that. I can ask someone who says, no, God, if he loved you, he would force you to be with him.
Oh, no, I wouldn't argue that.
There are some people that would. Actually, it's quite common. Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
yeah. But what I'm trying to get at is, we're not necessarily going to agree immediately on what love is. And I'm saying is that, so for example, the Islamic understanding of God's love is very different from the Christian understanding.
You guys put it on the table. I didn't write a thing which went God
bless you.
That didn't come from me.
If you wouldn't mind, a cup of coffee if you wouldn't mind. Black. Nothing black. Yeah.
I didn't put God is love on the table. You guys did.
Sure.
If that's the case, it's beholden on you first to define your term.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Now, I happen to believe that you're right, and God is love in the sense I mean it, but it's beholden on you to define. So what does it mean when you said God is love?
I'd like to prod that. I don't know if me and you actually agree.
You may not.
I think at some point it probably will break a little bit. And I think that's probably going to be because I'm a traditional Christian and you're a Universalist. So I think our perspectives will differ on that.
They may have huge overlap.
Oh, hey, good to see you, man. It's been a long time. How you been? Yeah, that's anyway.
Hopefully they've got huge overlap. I would say.
Yeah, there is. I think that we probably agree, at least on the topic of love, maybe like 90%, maybe.
Okay,
I think.
I'll give you definition of love. God's love. I think what's being referred to is empathy.
Empathy.
That's what's being talked about. That's why it said treat other people the way you want to be treated. That is the essence of empathic behaviour. So I think that's what is meant by love in this context. And
I will expand that. There's more, but you know.
There may be more, but would you deny that is?
No, I'm not denying it. Okay. It's not that I'm denying what you're saying. It's just that I think that we have to go a bit further than that. It's not just empathy.
I never said it was just, but it's
okay, that's fine.
Essentially.
Well, yeah, then okay,
that's the most important element. Now, I believe an empathic God would understand I will always fall short of the idea because I'm a human being and understand that. But as long as I do the best I can within my silly human limitations, an empathic God, I think will go, that's good enough, well done. You did the best you could. That's what
yes, although I would be very specific about how I define what those categories are. Okay. For example, people who have never heard.
But they're not actually. Well, no, actually, I'm not sure you can. As long as you're acting with good intent, you may consequentially produce problems. But that's a consequentialist argument. I don't think either is a consequentialist. Terrible things happen when people try to do wonderful stuff. But if I'm trying to judge the event, I go, that was a terrible event. If I'm trying to judge the individual and the choice they made, I have to go, I know you were trying to help.
Right.
And you were being diligent and doing the best you could, and I applaud you for it. And I'm sorry it caused a car crash. But I know you were trying to cause a car crash. And I believe God would filter it that way, from intent.
I think there's enough in religions like Islam, for example, that clearly demonstrate it's not ethical and that it cannot be properly attributed to God because of Well, that one reason, but other reasons as well.
I think Islam to me definitely contains contaminants.
Is it enough to? So, for example,
But I expect contaminants. I'm not amazed. I think your religion contains contaminants. That doesn't put me off it.
but there has to be a difference here. Even if you want to make it like a measuring stick, Christianity teaches love as in a way that you roughly agree with. But the Islamic perspective, do you think it also teaches that, or
I kind of do. I think
you do?
I personally believe Christianity actually does a bit of a better job. But I think Islam is definitely heading in that direction in terms of respect for other people.
Respect for other people isn't love, though. Let's be clear.
No, it's a reflection.
But it's not.
Respect for other people as a reflection.
I respect a lot of people here. Actually, I do love them because I'm called to love them. But I would say it's not because I respect them. It's not synonymous, is what I'm saying.
Their actions. I mean, you respect they have a soul. The foundations of all of our religions,
Right.
I think, are everyone's got a soul.
Yeah.
That's the key thing.
Yeah.
So we've all got a soul. We all make choices how we handle it.
Yeah.
They're doing it as well. And there's positives within their religion. There's bad stuff lumped in there, but there's bad stuff lumped in there.
No, the difference. Okay, so the denigration of women. I don't think that's loving. I just can't.
I agree.
But I mean, this isn't like, oh, should women speak in church? This woman fundamentally is deficient in religion and intellect
I agree.
by nature.
If that is an accurate interpretation,
Which I think it is.
you can make an argument for, then I agree with you. But that doesn't mean I don't think the fitra and the 5 pillars and a lot of their conduct isn't fairly exemplary.
Oh, okay, so wait. But
I can do both things.
that would be like saying, well, I can boil Christianity down to just the Lord's Prayer. And that's all it is. But I don't think that's fair as a way of, like.
I think it distills to essences of the core text, the core of Christianity.
But this is the core, because one of the core pillars of Islam is both the Quran and the Sunnah. You can't and they all say this is valid, this is correct interpretation.
Islam has gone too far because
Then you know it's not loving.
No, it doesn't.
You know that. You do.
No, I don't.
Right, Tony, I would like to carry on. Me and you can chat later.
You want to do someone else? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't mean to be
was a
rude.
nice
It's just
chat.
that.
No,
Yeah. Do you want to wrap up? You can say whatever you want to.
Thank you for the offer. You know what, son, I can't think of anything brilliantly insightful to say apart from thank you very much
No worries.
for the time and a civilised discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise. God
And I
bless
think
you.
you're a good guy aiming for a good thing, and that's what God cares about. So the intellectual conclusions you draw are totally secondary to that.
Oh, thank you.
I think.
Thank you.
So if there's a heaven, you'll be going there.
Well, that's good to
I
hear.
think there's a couple of Muslims here who'll be going there as well. That's all.
Well, I pray one day you become someone I can confidently call a brother in Christ. That's what I hope for you.
Take care. Good luck.
God bless you. Hello, James. How you been?
How's it going?
I'm good. Are you live? I think these guys are live. I think. Hey guys, I had a really nice chat with Tony. He's a regular at Speaker's Corner. You guys have probably seen him before. We were just talking about what it means to love in the Christian way. Now he's a Universalist. I'm not a Universalist. I'm a Orthodox Christian. So we obviously have our differences there, but it's a really interesting conversation nonetheless. And obviously with Tony, it's always very respectful, and I appreciate that. I hope one day I can call him my brother in Christ. That made me really happy, and I pray that day happens. I hope that day happens soon. But the conversation wasn't even originally about that. Although Tony was there, it was actually between another Christian brother and Sabor Ahmed, I believe his name is, and they were talking about Christian things, not atheist things, which I was surprised about. But I went to enjoy that conversation, but Sabor, he didn't seem interested to have me there. So surprise, surprise, he didn't engage and he walked off. But I had a nice chat with Tony, and that was all good. So that's a nice quick wrap up for you all. God bless you all. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.